Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics. Happy 4th of July weekend if you're in the United States. Today I want to talk about fixing your old artwork, and not necessarily just the process of doing it, but why you might actually want to think about doing it in the first place. Now keep in mind I'm coming at this from the context of working on my Spectre Comics and not necessarily working on an individual piece of art. Now a quick Spectre Comics history lesson. Way back in the early 2000s, I was working on one of my first early Spectre Comics, and around 2009, 2010, I discovered Amazon's CreateSpace program, where you could publish a book, or in my case, a graphic novel, and get it published and actually put it for sale to the public on Amazon's website. And I thought that was a great idea. I got really excited. And the result of that was Spectre, A Dark Matter. That's the book I was working on at the time. You can actually go on Amazon right now and buy this book. Now, I'm not saying that to plug the book. I'm just saying that's where my head was at that time when I was working on these comics. The fact of the matter is I really hate this book. Not because it's necessarily a bad story, which it very well could be, but it's more so that over the last 10 years, I've improved my process and my craft significantly compared to what's in this book. And this book and this art is no longer consistent with the way I make my comics today. My second book, Spectre Chasing Shadows, which is not on Amazon, was not published with CreateSpace. I actually printed this with Kablam. This work is a lot more consistent with how I do my comics today. If you compare Chasing Shadows to A Dark Matter, it's night and day, the quality, the difference in the artwork, the difference in the style. And the key to this whole thing is that this book actually is considered book one in my entire Spectre series. And in order for me to feel comfortable that this is canon and consistent with my other work and my current work, I wanted to go back and fix the artwork in this, and that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to actually walk through a page. We'll look at the things on one of the old original pages, and we'll talk about how I'm going to fix them, because these pages were not drawn digitally at all. These were all drawn by hand, and now I'm taking a PDF reproduction of each individual sheet and putting it in the computer, and now I got to enhance it in the computer with Photoshop. So let's take a look at that now. So before we jump into looking at a page, I'll let you know that you can read Spectre Comics for free as a webcomic at my website, spectrecomics.com. There'll be a link in the description below. You can go ahead and check it out. The first 14 pages of Spectre, A Dark Matter are posted there, and these are the edited versions of the pages. Now, we're going to be looking at page 14 here, and that page I just recently posted at the website. So you can see the completed page posted there right now. But let's take a look at the page before I edit it and identify the things that I was looking to fix before I reposted that. The first thing you'll notice is the font is terrible. I used Comic Sans. It's basically known in indie comics that you do not use Comic Sans. It's basically taboo in the industry, so I would avoid it at all costs. I did not know this 10 years ago. So what I've done is I've downloaded a font from blambot.com, which is a website that creates fonts for many different uses, mostly comics. They have all different types of fonts that you can look at. You can license them, you can use them in your comics. You can even create your own font. I chose to use one of the fonts from the website and download it, and now I'll be using that. So all the font on this page will be replaced. The second thing you'll notice is the hatched shadows. So if you look at Storbo's head here, I used hatching for the shadows. I don't draw that way anymore. So I'm going to be erasing or deleting all of these shadows. I actually don't use a lot of shadows. Now again, this is a lot easier because my comics are in black and white. If I had a color comic, it would be a lot harder to edit this. So one thing you'll notice is that because I'm working on a PDF, I don't have any layers to work with. So I have to create new layers to either mask or draw new things on this PDF. So I turned the PDF into a PSD file, a Photoshop document, so I could add layers and edit it that way. So we'll get into the editing process in a little bit, but I want to point out that I'm going to basically have to erase all of these hatching lines. Another thing you'll notice is the line quality. Because I originally drew this by ink on paper and then I scanned it in a computer, it basically digitized all my lines. So when you zoom real close in, you can see that the lines are not crisp. In fact, they're very digital and very, you have gray tones and you have, solid blacks. So when I draw digitally now, I get some nice black lines and I can smooth them out. But because this was scanned from a pen and ink on paper, scanned into the computer, when you go in there, this is the kind of line quality you get because it digitizes everything. And so I have a lot of the line quality that I want to fix. So I will be going through, and in the worst cases, trying to fix the lines by cleaning up the edges and shaving away, adding some masking, and then actually adding some new black lines to solidify the line work. The next thing I want to point out is my star fields. Now again, Spectre Comics takes place in outer space. I have a much different way of doing stars now, but the way I did stars back when I was doing pen and ink on paper was I'd create a black area, again with marker, which, you know, if you have a large black area of space, one marker would basically be gone by the time you filled it all in. But the way I did the stars was basically I took a whiteout pen and I just tapped dots onto the page to create stars. Now, one thing that this doesn't do is it doesn't allow me to get different size stars, and it just doesn't really look like stars at all. You can see how dirty this looks, how bad these stars look. So one of the final things that I want to point out is just the way I draw my characters and the anatomy. If you take a look at this picture of Risa here, you've got Spark, Prox, and Risa. Risa, I really copped out on. I drew her from the back. You can't really see her. Her arm is too short. This just doesn't look good. I cut her off at the waist so I didn't have to draw her legs. I just took a really lazy approach to drawing this character on this page. I wanted to indicate her on the page, but I got really lazy in the way I drew her. Now I've improved the way I draw, so I'm actually going to remove this character entirely, and I'll spot do this. If I find something really offensive or something that really doesn't look good, I'll actually go back and redraw the character completely to make them look more consistent with the way I draw today. So that is one of the things that on this page I'm going to fix. So we'll just run through a couple of the things that I did to improve the drawing. So here we're going to just clean up some lines, make the lines a little more consistent, and fix some just the anatomy on Storbo's arms. So this just takes creating some additional layers and actually blackening in the lines and then removing any of the lazy lines or inaccurate lines on the anatomy. So here on Risa, I actually went back and completely redrew her, got her a little more into the shot and a little more accurate the way she's drawn today. So she's now actually turned, and so she's facing the camera, but she's still facing Spark, who's standing at the console. And I just got to get the arms right. But again, the technique I use now to draw anatomy has made it a lot easier for me to improve the characters that I'm drawing. So one of the things that was incorrect was the way I used to draw the Spectre ship, the Zebulon. The ship was a lot more curved, but once I created my SketchUp model that I use now to have more consistent drawings of the ship design kind of evolved a little bit. So I'm going and correcting some of this old drawings ships. I didn't mention this on one of the items that I wanted to fix, but this kind of goes in line with just improving some of the artwork in the page. So if something really jumps out at me as not correct or not consistent with the way I draw something now, and again, the Zebulon, the ship is used in a lot of the comics because they travel everywhere in it. It's their vessel that they use to go everywhere on their missions. So drawing this a little more accurately and a little more consistent with the way I draw today was important to get this right. So what I do in Spectre Comics now is because I do black and white comics, to give it a little texture, I do add some gray tones into the pages. So that's what I'm doing here, taking this little moon so that it kind of jumps off the page a little bit. This is the moon called Mineta, which has their base in it. And then finally, fixing the last bits of text on the page using the new text that I got from Blambot. So I'll just basically typing the same thing. Now I will take the opportunity to fix dialogue if I see it's necessary, so that some of the dialogue on my original comic was a little cheesy, and so in some cases, I'm going to actually go back and change it and make it a little more tolerable. Adding in some stars. Again, I'm not doing stars the way I actually do in my new comics, where I actually use an image of an outer space image as a backdrop. But I'm going to go in and clean it up. The stars look a lot better here with me dabbing it in, because I can get the pixel sizes different and get a variation in the stars. Okay, so the final thing I want to do is just take a look at side by side between the original page and the cleaned up page. Let's split the screen here. So let's take a look side by side. You can see now just how I cleaned up the page, how the drawing looks a lot more consistent. If you're familiar with my current Spectre Comics, this is a lot more consistent with the way I draw today. The page is just generally cleaned up. It just looks a lot better. In this case, Risa is fixed over here. Let's zoom in here and take a look. Night and day, the way she looks different here. I fixed Spark's hand here. I didn't like this hand, so I drew a new hand here. The text looks a lot better. Just general cleanup of the lines. You can look here, the Zebulon in this shot looks a lot better and a lot more cleaned up. All of these hatching lines are gone. All the weird light is gone. The sphere is a lot larger, which is more consistent with the way it's actually drawn. And even the final couple of panels look a lot better. They're a lot more cleaned up. Let's zoom in on these two panels here. Just a lot better. You could just see how much more cleaned up it looks and how much better it is. So that is the comparison of why I would actually want to clean up these old comic pages. So once I get done with these, every time I finish a page, I post it on my website, and I just hope to keep posting as I complete each page. Now, it's not perfect by any means. There's still things that I would go back and fix, but I'm trying to be reasonable in how much effort I want to put in to fix this old book. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. You can actually see this page posted on my website at spectrecomics.com, so go ahead and check it out. There'll be a link in the description below. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to my channel, share the video with other comic book fans. That is it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time, and have a great day.